Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Been gone a couple days. Not a lot of good things happen in Atlanta sports. Almost glad I was gone. Obviously, the Braves get eliminated. Couldn't be here on Friday. Falcons lose kind of terribly, just the way they lost against a bad Commanders team. I definitely thought they were going to win that game. Very disappointing way. Ritter throws 3 picks. We're going to talk a little bit about the Braves, what happened there. And the first thing I want to put out there into the universe is, you can't make excuses for anything about what happened in that series as terms of long layoff, blah, blah, blah. If I had told you at the beginning of the series, and it's funny, it's kind of ironic, right? We were all talking about pitching. Can the bullpen hold up? Can Bryce Elder? And yes, we had the one bad game with Bryce Elder, poor managerial decisions. We've talked about that. But other than that, 3 out of the 4 games, the Braves hold the Phillies to 4 runs or less. If I had told you that at the beginning of the series, you would have said, oh, the Braves are going to be playing today in the NLCS, because that's what you would have thought. I mean, 4 runs or less in 3 out of 4 games. You think the Braves at the very least, win 2 of those games, if not all 3 of those games. The pitching, particularly the bullpen, was pretty solid this entire series. Spencer Strider, was he dominant? No, but if a guy goes out there in a playoff series and has a 3 ERA over 12 and a half innings or whatever he threw, he pitched pretty well. Max Fried wasn't great, but then the bullpen came in and you actually win that game. The pitching was not the issue. Surprisingly, the bats don't show up. You can blame the long layup. You can do whatever. I think really you just have to credit what the Phillies were able to do pitching. I thought Rob Thompson managed circles around Brian Snitker. That might have been maybe the biggest advantage the Phillies had in the entire series outside of Bryce Harper or something like that. Rob Thompson was just perfect. I mean, the way he brought his relievers out in in the highest leverage of situations, which we talked about after Game 3, bringing in guys like Craig Kimbrell in the 7th and bringing in Jose Alvarado in the 6th when you need to get outs in the biggest moments. That's how you manage in the postseason. And hopefully Brian Snitker took notes. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's 6 years in and we're talking about these same things with Brian Snitker. How does he not know how to manage in the postseason? I don't know. Maybe it's because the Braves didn't have as many high leverage arms as the Phillies did, so he couldn't make those critical decisions because he has to save those guys for the later innings. You could make that argument. But in the grand scheme of things, the pitching got it done. The hitting didn't. And you lost to a team that on that particular week was just simply better than you. I mean, it could have easily been a sweep. They were just the better team. And I talked about it all leading up to the postseason for months, how the Phillies were the second best team. Now you're seeing them kill the Diamondbacks. You lost to a really, 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 really good team that's playing really good baseball. So I don't want to make excuses. And I think the Phillies are going to go on and win the World Series. I said whoever wins that series, probably going to win the World Series. So am I going to sit here and be like, oh, wholesale changes need to be made or anything like that? No. Do things need to be tweaked? Do things need to be bolstered? Absolutely. But you lost to a team that simply was over 5 games better than you. If it was a 7-game series, they still would have won the series. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can't do the same exact thing and expect a different result, and that's the case. This was a better team than it was last year, especially the health wise. Considering Ozzy, Acuna, Spencer was full go. Max was coming off of a blister, but he was still probably in a better shape this year than he was last year. Didn't have Charlie Morton, but still, overall, I think this was a better team in terms of health wise, and it still just couldn't get it done. I think, Snitker in Game 3 is going to go down as one of the strangest managerial decisions of one of my lifetimes, because it felt like he was just treating it as if it was any other game and it wasn't like a must-win game. I know you got your horse and Strider on the mound in Game 4. You like your chances. Hell, we sat here and said, we like our chances. But the fact of the matter is we were all sitting here wondering, how short Elder's leash was, and it didn't even cross Snitker's mind until it was too late. And that's inexcusable. It's indefensible. And I don't think that cost the Braves a series. Like you said, if it was a 7-game series, the Braves were still probably going to win. The Phillies stars, I said it last week on Friday, the Phillies stars just shined a little bit brighter than the Brave stars. Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner, they all came up big when the moments were brightest. And ours didn't. Ronald Acuna Jr. had the bases loaded, put one on the warning track. Listen, Ronald Acuna Jr. had 4 100-plus mile-per-hour exit velocity hits in that Game 4. It just didn't fall our way. He's not the one to blame. The entire offense to blame. Austin Riley's about the only one who showed up in the NLDS with some fight. Ozzy Albies, too. I will give credit to Ozzy Albies as well. it's just one of those days, one of those things you just look up and you go, chalk it up to baseball. Phillies were by far and away the better team that series, and it very well could have been a sweep. You were absolutely right. We're lucky that we got it to game 4.
Yeah, the offense, it's a weird thing because I don't think that that's something that over a bigger sample size would continue. I mean, it's something that I know wouldn't continue over a larger sample size. And you just wonder, do these guys have the mental fortitude? Are they clutch? I mean, you see Bryce Harper, he steps up in those moments. And really, when I think about the entire series, I look back at certain pitches and I think the Braves really didn't make their pitching staff for the most part. You go back, let's just stick purely on game 4. And I'm going over every pitch in my head, thinking about Spencer Strider. And I think he made 4 or 5 mistakes the entire game where he hung a slider or maybe went back to the well with that fastball too much against Nick Castellanos and left it over the middle of the plate instead of getting it a little higher in the strike zone where it would have been much tougher for him to make hard contact with. Every mistake that the Braves pitchers made, the Phillies hit out of the ballpark or hit hard for a double or something like that. There were some mistakes that the Phillies pitchers made. They're human. There were mistakes throughout the game, but it just turned into a hard foul ball to the thing or a hard line out or a foul ball into the stands or something like that. They just took advantage of every mistake that the Braves pitchers made, and they made them pay in a big way. It wasn't just like a single or something. No, they were flying 440 feet out of the ballpark, and it's unfortunate. It sucks. You start thinking towards next year and you're like, what does this team need? And you saw, I know Jeff Schultz wrote that hit piece on partly due to Ronald Acuna not showing up to the thing. I mean, that was just so some of these guys, like, I know they're not Atlanta fans, so they feel the need that they can write whatever they want and write these hit pieces, and it doesn't matter. And they're right because we're just obsessed with the Braves and like we can't get our rose-colored glasses off. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, Ronald Acuna coming into the postseason had like an 880 OPS. Like he had performed well in the postseason. You're going to now say, oh, now he's not a postseason performer because he went 2 for 14 in one series. It's just a 14 at bat sample size is now going to change and because he didn't show up to the media. And do you really need him to come up and be like, oh man, we lost, like sucks, get him next year? Like what is he really going to say that you need? And it's just maybe should he have shown up to the media? Yes, but who cares? Like who cares? And saying these guys can't get it done, I just think is just absurd. It's just absurd. Wholesale changes are not needed. We've seen Matt Olson have big moments in the postseason last year when no one else showed up. We saw Austin Riley have them this year. We know Ronald Acuna can get it done. Ozzie Albies had a good series. Like you need to tweak the roster, but like I said, you lost to a really good team. Like if we had gotten swept by the Diamondbacks like the Dodgers did, I might be sitting here having a different conversation. I might be saying different things. But you lost to a team who went to the World Series last year, most likely going to win the World Series, or maybe not win it, but at least go to it this year again and beat the Diamondbacks and maybe win the whole dang thing. So if you lose to the second best team in 4 games in a 5-game series, it is not the most embarrassing thing in the world. Now, does it suck after you win 104 games and you're 16 games better than them in the regular season? Absolutely. It's terrible. You hate it. But you didn't lose to scrubs. You did not lose to scrubs. So I
want to talk about, and it wasn't just Jeff Schultz. There were people on local radio in Atlanta, 92.9, who were just throwing a hissy fit like little kids. We're half their age, and it looks like we're twice as mature as them. It's always hilarious to me to see these guys, me and you included, tell superstars how they should conduct themselves. Jeff Schultz in particular, and I don't know these other 92.9 guys, they have never, ever been on the stage that Ronald Acuna Jr. finds himself on. They've never had the talent level needed to be on that stage. They sit back, they critique, and they tell him how he should act in a moment that they'll never find themselves in. And that's disingenuous. And frankly, you're a bozo. And he should have. Let me get this out of the way. That Ronald Acuna Jr. should have stayed there. He should have answered the questions in that coach speak. We should have we'll get him next time. We should have played harder. Credit to the Phillies. They're a really good team. But what does that change other than your opinion of the guy? It doesn't change what happened in the series. And I promise it's not going to change what happens in the 2024 regular season or the 2024 postseason. I promise it's not going to change anything except your opinion of the guy. And frankly, your opinion doesn't really matter in this situation. You're just lecturing from a place that you've never been in. It's crazy to me that these people can sit on their high horses and tell somebody that's been in a situation they'll never find themselves in what they should do in that situation. It's crazy. It's delusional.
Yep. I can't agree. I don't want to spend too much time on the Jeff Schultz thing because I think it's like giving him too much credit, and I don't want to spend too much time even talking about him. Like I think he writes things.
It wasn't just him though. It wasn't just him. There was guys on 92.9 who were jawing, and it's crazy. It's crazy. It doesn't change anything. Anything. He's 25 years old. He's 25 years old.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I want to just bring up and it's talking about those wholesale changes. Listen, whether you think they're needed or not, which they're not needed, I can tell you that right now, they're not needed. They're not coming. They're just not coming. Like this lineup is set in stone for next year. Like you said, like we've talked about and we've written on the site, go check it out, sportstalkatl.com when you're looking at things that this team needs. Yes, I think the Eddie Rosario thing, I think, can we put 2021 to bed and maybe move on there? That's a potential, and maybe not move on. I mean, him having on a $9 million club option is not ridiculous to bring back. I mean, the Braves have money, and we've talked about that time and time again. They're going to have money to spend. Bringing him back and then adding maybe a better platoon option, having Kevin Pillar in the lineup was not something that I was thrilled about. So upgrading Kevin Pillar and having another righty platoon is something I could see them. Now we've talked about Jorge Soler, we've talked about Adam Duvall. And then obviously bringing in someone like Jock Peterson, even though he's a lefty, maybe you get rid of Rosario in that scenario. But bringing in someone that just, adds some balls to this team, add some swagger. I definitely think there's something missing there because you look at the Phillies, and I thought this last year, they had what the 2021 Braves, and just they're like, no one's effing with us, right? Like there was something missing from this team, and just you could see it throughout the series when the whole Orlando Arcia stuff was going down, and it almost seemed like they were just like backing down, like they were less of men than the team across from them, just the way that they were acting. And we can say that wasn't happening. And I hate to literally sit here and say a group of professional elite athletes are less of men than the team across of them, but they were acting like it. Like that's the way they were acting. They were acting like scared little puppies. Someone needed to be in the locker room and saying, hey, stop acting scared. Like we're not the team. We've done too much. We are historically great. Like, stop being scared. I don't understand. And then the Phillies danced on our graves, and they deserve to dance on their graves. I mean, they had shirts printed out before Game 4 with Attaboy Harper and, ooh, he didn't mean to hear it and all this stuff. I mean, they knew what was coming. They knew what was coming, and the Braves just didn't have that confidence. So bringing in someone like that who gives you that confidence, that's definitely got to be a priority. Obviously, the starting pitching staff with Kyle Wright out, we don't know what's going to happen with Charlie Morton. You could need multiple guys there. That's probably going to be the absolute top priority. But the number one thing I really think that even if you don't go out there and get multiple aces of the staff, you got to go out there and get guys in the bullpen that can throw 100 miles per hour. We need to load up there because there's no reason not to be loaded up in the bullpen. I talk about it all the time. The bullpen's the easiest place to add people and add high-powered arms and stuff like that. They need to add 3, 4, 5 guys because that alone can take a lot of pressure off your starting staff. The Phillies starting staff isn't anything ridiculously amazing. They got their 2 horses in Nolan Wheeler. Ranger Suarez pitched really good. He has ice in his veins in the postseason. He's almost like a lefty Ian Anderson. You're like, you don't really expect him to pitch well, but he goes out there and throws 5 scoreless every single time he toes the rubber. So getting a little bit better in the rotation, but getting a bunch of guys in the bullpen that can throw hard, and then you can just bring them in constantly and keep them fresh. That's such a huge advantage that the Braves didn't have and the Phillies did have in this series. I think that's almost just as important as adding to that rotation.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, attitude. I think I do want to put 2 things into perspective. One, there are 28 other clubs that will take the Braves lineup and their core of talent over their own. Nearly every single other club in Major League Baseball, nearly every single one. Also, the Phillies stars are old. They're not old. Bryce Harper just turned 31. Ron Acuna Jr. is 25 years old. Bryce Harper still doesn't have a ring. Or he does have a ring with Washington. But the point basically I'm trying to make is this team is still young.
He doesn't have a ring.
He wasn't with Washington?
No, that
this team is still young. This team is still incredibly young. They're still learning on the job. There's no need to make wholesale changes. That's out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I said it literally the next day after it happened. I said the story about this group is just getting started. Like this is the beginning of the story. And I know it sucks that it's happened 2 years in a row. And I know if you've been a Braves fan for long enough, it kind of feels like you're back in the 90s again, where you have all these amazing teams and then they show up to the playoffs and they fall flat on their face. And maybe that's what it continues happening. But 2 years is not enough of a sample size in a 5-game series, losing to a really good team, as I keep trying to give the Phillies credit. Like, they are a really good team, maybe the second, third best team in the league every year. Is not enough of a sample size. The story of this group is just getting started. I still firmly believe Ronald Acuna is going to have his moments where he wins the World Series. Spencer Strider is going to have his big moments and stuff like that. Like,
and even if, I mean, we all are sad. I projectile vomited. I want to win a World Series again and again and again. Even if we don't, stop acting like the sky is falling. We still are we're the best team in the regular season. It doesn't matter now, but we're going to be in every single World Series from here to the end of the decade.
Yeah. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk some Falcons and Commanders. Terrible loss for the Birds.